Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about webtoons and the influx of smutty comics. There are very few things that the Puritans and I agree on, but smut not being on webtoons is probably the one common ground that we could all kumbaya over.
Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya.
Probably for different reasons, but we got there. The reason that it's just such a bad move is because Webtoons tries to toe this line, especially, let me be specific, Webtoons English, because it's not the same across different languages in different countries. The English version in specific tends to kind of toe this line of being very family and advertiser friendly, but they can't fight themselves back from getting in on the cash grab of the popularity of smutty stories and adult themes. It's basically the worst of both worlds because it's not like they're putting them out as the author intended, but rather they're taking them, removing the smutty elements, and then presenting it to the readers. The platform isn't giving family friendly like they want it to give, but at the same time, it's also not delivering on the stories they're picking up because they'll be so heavily censored that it just makes for an overall less than pleasant reading experience. The issue with removing erotic elements from erotic romances is that it decontextualizes aspects of the story that would otherwise make sense. It creates an environment where a lot of viewers are confused by what they're seeing, and it breeds unnecessary resentment and outrage towards authors and artists because people aren't viewing the story in its intended context. A good example of this is a story called Tears on a Withered Flower. One of the primary complaints of this story is the art style, and more specifically, people have problems with the body type of the main female lead. People feel that the female lead's body type is very exaggerated. They don't like her figure or how her boobs are drawn, or they basically think she's too hot. To be honest, I think that's a bit ridiculous. It's always how the women are drawn. We're not going to talk about how the male lead is built like a refrigerator, but let's just focus on the female characters, right? Yes, the female lead's features, as well as frankly every character in these series, is eroticized because that's the intention of the story. And the issue is that they're viewing it as a romance rather than the erotica that it is. This isn't the first time it happened. Like even with Childhood Friend Complex, which is, they butchered that one to pieces. Like, I don't even know how you can put Childhood Friend Complex on webtoons. It's about being friends with benefits. Like, that's literally the fundamental element of the story. Someone actually posted a side-by-side showing the webtoons English version of the story that had been heavily censored in contrast with the Korean version, which maintained all the original elements of the story. But the webtoons one was literally cropped. Anything that could be cropped and edited and cut out was on the chopping room floor. It wasn't just the fun scenes that were cut, but it was like they cropped out cleavage. At some point they even had like damn near just blank panels throughout the series. I'm like what are we looking at? Why am I looking at a blank panel? What's going on here? From the author's side of things, I completely understand why they would put their stories on webtoons because frankly, it's hard. And if you have an opportunity to get your story out into the world, I completely understand wanting to take that opportunity because even if you do have to have it, chopped up, at least your story is like being published. At least you can earn an income on that. What I don't understand is why webtoons keep seeking them out and picking them up. I mean, I get it, it's for money, but it just seems like if you really want to be that family friendly platform, just be that. Like, just be that. There are so many amazing stories that are completely smut free, they're age appropriate, anyone can read them, and it's like, focus on that. They'll do this thing where they post an advertisement for a series and they will pick the most sauced up picture they could find. And I'm just like, okay, but you're not delivering that, so don't advertise that. And then they'll have the nerve to censor swear words. It makes no sense. It's interesting when I'll see a post from someone online and they'll be reading and loving a story and then they come to find out, wait a minute, this has a fun version that I didn't know about. It's also interesting how stigmatized erotic romances are by people who are literally reading them without knowing that the actual story is derived from a smutty novel or a comic exists elsewhere that has the full scenes in it. Like, a lot of people don't know that Broken Ring is an erotic romance. People don't know Failed to Oust the Villain is an erotic romance, and many, many others. There have even been times where I'm reading the story and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just like, what happened? This doesn't make sense. And then I'll see in the comments someone said, oh yeah, if you're confused, this whole chapter was cut. You're actually missing dialogue. I think the term sexposition, like exposition through the act of two characters sleeping together, was coined in reference to Game of Thrones, how you can't necessarily skip the smutty scenes of that series without missing dialogue and plot progression. And it's kind of the same in many, many webtoons where there will actually be discussions had in the midst of fun scenes that explain or give context for past or future events of the story. And personally, sometimes I do get annoyed by smut. Like, sometimes it is a bit much and it is a bit cringe, to be honest. To be honest, it is. But I'm also a purist who likes to read the story the way that the author intended. And that's my biggest thing. People do this thing where if the female lead is drawn in a way that reflects conventional standards of sexual attractiveness, they have this like visceral reaction and an assumption that the character is drawn this way to cater to men, which I resent because A, not all women are straight. Let's start there. We know that the stories are categorized as josei. We know that the intended demographic is women. There are women who like that type of thing. I do kind of wish people would take a step back from perpetuating the idea that anytime you see the quote unquote pornhua body type for female leads, that the story is catered towards men, because no, it's not. Like, if you've read a story like that that is catered towards men, you would know the difference. You just want to leave, you just want to escape.
I don't know nothing about that lifestyle, whatever y'all got going on, because that's not me.
I don't know what's going on here. I just want to leave. I don't want to be here. Another aspect is people miss the fact that there's an element of fantasy in the idea of being the traditional sexual preference, right? There are people who read with like a self-insert mindset and put themselves into the context of the story as the female protagonist. And for a lot of those people, they may feel a disconnect because her body type doesn't reflect their body type. But for another type of reader, they might engage in the fantasy of being that ideal. That is part of it for them. While it may not be necessarily pleasant to consider the fact that some people's fantasy is being the quote unquote male ideal, desire and preferences can't necessarily be controlled and packaged into a way that is politically correct or palatable. Sometimes when you're reading these types of stories, people are engaging in desires that may not be socially acceptable. One thing I've noticed with like a lot of the commentary around more mature series, erotic series, whatever, is that people really want to shame others for having any type of preference that doesn't fit neatly into an ethical box of desire. What's missing is a lot of people use reading as an escape to safely engage in things that in reality are not safe to engage in, right? When you read something like I Failed to Oust the Villain, in the context of fantasy, the male lead who locks the female lead into a mage tower where she can't escape, it's a safe way to engage with crazy. In real life, no, you don't want to interact with a man who would kidnap you. Like, that's common sense. All this type of stuff kind of goes into that what is ethical, what is moral, and what people are allowed to be drawn to. And I just think that kind of defeats the point of fantasy. This like strong need to control is part of the biggest issue that I have with the webtoons community as a whole. And honestly, I can't tell if this is the dominant belief or if this is more a vocal minority, because you see most of the commentary online, at least on the English side of the internet, when a webtoon is getting a lot of hate, it's because it's not upholding this moral standard. But then when you look at how many people are reading and unlocking these chapters, if everyone hates it, how is it getting all these views? It's hard to know if the people who are engaging with these stories are like shamed into silence despite being the majority, and it's the vocal minority that kind of leads the like puritanical brigade of morality and ethics in reading. What body types are okay to draw, what themes are okay to write about, what stories should be platformed versus others. Another aspect of it that I see mentioned is the idea behind unrealistic body type. For this whole segment, I do want to preface that I worked in modeling for a very long time, and that has warped the way that I view body image and perhaps speak about body image. So, in this segment, I do want to be very careful with my words in case if I say the wrong things, I'm trying to convey an idea. But walk with me here, right? In general, when it comes to the promotion of unrealistic body types and things of that nature. Frankly, I think all webtoons kind of promote unrealistic body types. And I really don't like the term unrealistic because I think it confuses and it muddies the argument because a lot of people think that when you say unrealistic, you mean that body type does not exist anywhere in the world ever. There's always that one person who's like, I look like that, or I know this person who has this physique. We can't say, hey, smoking is dangerous without that one person being like, well, my granddad lived to 97 years old and he smoked a pack of cigarettes every day. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. We needed that. A lot of people say models promote unrealistic body types, and it doesn't mean that those people don't exist because obviously they're being literally referenced in that moment. But what it means is it's idealizing a body that's very, very difficult or in some cases unattainable for the average person. I prefer to use terms like idealized or conventional, etc. It just makes the argument a little bit more clear. Beyond just stories like Tears on a Withered Flower, I think that webtoons in general promotes idealized body types. I don't really know why in one context it seems to be accepted, whereas in another context, in typically referencing erotic romances, smut, etc., it seems to be problematic. I think for both male and female characters, I don't really see people like that every day when I'm like walking outside. And I think that's a problem that's bigger than just the smut genre because they're falling into an industry standard, which lends itself more to a greater dialogue than harping on this one particular webtoon. So, anyway, that's my overall ramblings and musings. Let me know what you thought in the comments. This is just kind of me speaking freely on a topic, but I'd love your feedback. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.